Cheers. Welcome to the check-in. Today I'm going to talk about British culture as I sit here and drink a cup of coffee, which is not anything to do with British culture whatsoever. But I'm recording this in the morning, so I haven't really fully woken up yet, so I need something. And seeing as I'm in Thailand, it's tea is rather expensive over here. So, and also I'm not really a massive tea drinker actually. I do drink tea, but these days I tend to drink more green tea actually, really for just health benefits. Excuse me. So yeah, so we're going to talk about British culture. So what is British culture really? A lot of people have dismissed the whole concept of it, or English culture more specifically. You know, a lot of people in this part of the world don't realise that the United Kingdom is made up of Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. A lot of people in Thailand, at least, believe that the United Kingdom is basically just England, which is obviously not true. I think one of the reasons that England is perhaps, well, it is the most popular, the most well-known country out of really, more or less, I'd say, out of to be part of the United Kingdom, is because of the huge, the huge influence really that England has had on so many different parts of the world, and obviously part of that process was obviously through colonizing other countries. And we can sit here and argue about that all day long. My take on it is there was obviously some horrific acts and some just horrific times really that happened through those years in various countries like India, Malaysia, and so forth. But I think in the end, I think our influence on those countries was probably more, I think, effective in the long run, in the long term, than it wasn't. I think what I'm saying is I think I don't know whether we can say that we should forgive those people that certainly the people that committed horrible acts of violence and oppressed the natives of different countries. I don't know, not necessarily saying we can forgive them, but you know, that was a long time ago, and it was long before my time, or before my parents, or even their parents. So I'm not in any way full of white guilt whatsoever. That has nothing to do with me whatsoever. I'm actually very proud of, in some ways I'm actually quite proud of the achievements so just one moment, just give me one moment, please. Sorry about that. I think overall, I think we can say, well, I'm going to say it. I think that England has had a more, has played a more beneficial role in the long term than in the short term, in regards to colonization of different countries around the world. Not everywhere, of course. There's obviously been some pretty long-lasting effects in different places, but I think that when you look at the impact of other countries, European countries, which I won't mention, and some of the effects that they had, and some of the devastation that they left behind, and some of the terrible things that they did, I think that in comparison, I think we haven't really done too. It's a difficult thing to say because I'm not trying to downplay what's happened, but I think we've fared better. I think countries have fared better. The countries that were colonised by the British or the English, I think, have more or less fared better in the long run, in economic terms and in regards to technology, and just their economies probably in some ways have, at least to some degree, have benefited in the century or two since that time. Or of course it depends on what country we're talking about, but in the last couple of decades at least, I think that the British government has tried to make amends. I think those countries have had their fair share of handouts of money, and they've done okay for themselves, I think, in some ways. I don't think Brits should be in the least guilty about being white or about being named British or English at all. I think we should be very proud, and I am very proud of my country in not in everything, but in some things. A lot of things I'm not proud of, and a lot of things I'm proud of. But I don't feel guilty about any of the bad things that we did, because why should I be? I didn't have anything to do with any of those things. It's nothing to do with me. And you can say, yeah, but you carry that heritage with you. True, but why should I feel guilty about it? Did I play a role in any of that? No. So why should I feel guilty about it? I dislike what's happened. I certainly don't look at that stuff and smile. Some of that stuff and smile. But everybody of every nationality in the world can look back from their country's history, in various wars, in various atrocities that were carried out, and have a horrible taste in their mouth afterwards. But leaving all that stuff aside, I think Britain's played such an important role in the world. There's so many inventions, so many advances that have just come out from the British Isles, especially in Scotland and England. Scotland doesn't get near enough the attention that it should do as a country. The Scots have played some pretty interesting parts throughout history, and also, we forget that it wasn't just that. The British didn't just affect countries abroad. They played a role in the oppression of other countries nearby, like the Scots and the Irish, but also English people as well. English people were oppressed by the English. We only have to look at monarchs, the kings and queens of the past, and political regimes. So I think that I don't know. I don't really like the concept of British because, in the sense of, what I mean is, I don't particularly like being called British. I prefer to be called English, because, to me, British is it's a plural word. It's a word that describes, you being part of the British Isles, as in, all of the United Kingdom, basically. That's not me. I'm from England. I'm English. and I'm proud to say I'm English, and I wish that my passport said I was. And you could call me overly patriotic, or, you know, what's the right word? You know, a nationalist or whatever. I don't believe in the use of violence or oppression based on my nationality or anything like that at all. Despise people that think it's okay to use ideologies like fascism to justify, you know, the murder of innocent people because they feel like they're being oppressed or they've been oppressed or something. I don't believe. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a time that potentially that we might need to defend ourselves as a country. That I'm not saying that. Obviously, that's why we have a defence. You know, that's why we have an army. That's why we have an air force. That's why we have the navy. Of course, we as a country, and of all the countries in the world, have some form of defence, and rightly so, and they should be able to protect themselves. And that's another thing that I'm proud of, is that in some ways, certainly in the past, not so much these days probably, but certainly in the last couple of decades, the last couple of 100 years or so, other countries have looked to England and the strong, just amazing quality of our defence network was something that we used to be very proud of, but other countries used to take note from. I think it's a real shame now that the army, in particular, the army has been infiltrated with this whole social justice movement and the whole push towards, you know, playing down the importance of masculinity and in the army. You know, and trying to just pushing this narrative of anybody that has an element of masculinity is somehow toxic. Yet it's, you know, it's the people who have an element of masculinity or something in them that the people that these people would look towards if things went sour, if things went bad, and there was a war. These are the people that would be screaming from the rooftops for these people to get out there and fight for them. Yet these are the cowards that would sit behind a desk somewhere, cowering in fear. You know, it's just so much hypocritical crap and just unbelievably regressive ideas. There's nothing progressive about this whole so-called progressive movement that's going on now, and it's not just affecting the army, it's affecting the air force, the navy, it's affecting the educational system. Schools now are being forced to comply with this whole transgender dogma that's happening. Colleges, professors have been and probably are being, maybe even today, being sacked because they didn't use the correct pronoun. It's all just gone absolutely insane. That's one of the things I'm not proud of about my country now, is that England, that is. And this is kind of what I wanted the video really to be completely about, is there's not pros and cons really for me about, not just about nationality and citizenship, feeling like you belong to something or whatever. For me, it's not for me. I'll just say this because it's not for me. It's not about. It's not like if I didn't have my British passport or whatever, I wouldn't feel like I belonged somewhere. Not in any way. I mean, England's still my home. It will always be my home, regardless. Well, probably anyway, unless something comes up, whatever. Whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I just it's just a shame that I just find it such a shame that England's over the last 30 odd years, more than that really, It's been about a 50-year process, but certainly in the last 20, 30 years, things have accelerated beyond all people's expectations, really, in regards to the impact of political correctness. I mean, that was happening whilst I was at school. I mean, certainly when I was at secondary school or high school, that was starting to take a hold of things then. But it's not just in the political spectrum. It's just in daily life now. You know, it's just England's just become tolerant of intolerance, and we only have to look at what's happened in regards to religion with Islam, and the horrific situation in places like Rotherham, where the police are basically too scared to mention the specific people who are responsible for, well, rather the specific nationalities of these people, because they don't want to be branded as racists because people just happen to be from places like Pakistan or wherever, or parts of the Middle East, or whatever, they happen to have a specific coloured skin. You know, that's one of the things there's a lot of things now in this time that I really don't like about my country, and I'm very, very worried, and I don't know what the future is actually for England in many ways now. So when I'm saying I'm proud, I'm more proud of what England used to be, what England used to represent, and what it used to give to other parts of the world in terms of its image and its status, its power. You know, the royal family used to be seen as something more than just, you know, something to just take a photo of, or it used to mean something. It used to represent, and of course that's because of the shift in power from monarchy to government, of course. But it's just in general, I think that I just feel that we've become just such a weakened nation of people. Our identity is more or less, and to some extent, we never really had I don't think we ever really had a fully strong identity, because so many different influences that influenced our identity. But I think we do have an identity, but I think we used to have more of an identity. We still have one, but it's become so weakened that it's at a stage of mocking, really. It's at a stage of, it's just a laughing stock now. And in some ways I feel a little bit embarrassed to even be seen as someone that comes from my country, which is a real shame. I hope that things will turn around at some point. I hope that we will get a government in place in the future that will, undo all this madness. Because we can't continue like this, that's for sure. And in regards to politics, I think there is some positive hope. There is some hope, some positivity perhaps down the line, because we've got parties like For Britain now. I really recommend you go and check them out. Really, really, just common sense politics, and that's one of the things that they push is that concept. Down to earth people, average people, normal people. And you could say, yeah, we don't want average people in government. We want people that are the best of the best. But Anne-Marie is trying to find that. She's trying to find the most qualified people, the best people to eventually become. Some of people even are councillors now, and eventually get MPs, and hopefully in the next 10, 20 years, maybe more. I hope it's within the next 20 years. They will be able to form a government or perhaps a coalition. But I personally think that one of the things that has to change in regards to political system in England is the voting system. It's just not working. It's, you know, the first past the post system it's not really working. I don't think it's particularly fair. It's all about representation and all this sort of thing, really. But I'm not an expert on the you know, democratic process, or what is supposed to be a democratic process. But I just don't think it's working, and it doesn't. And when you've got smaller parties that are trying to push through, and you've got two massive, you know, long-established parties that have got unbelievable amounts of money and funding and sponsors, you know, these other parties haven't got a chance, basically. Or if they do, it's going to be decades from now, when the people that set up these parties are too old to carry on, or maybe just give up and dissolve the parties. It doesn't. That to me is not fair. I think there needs to be more support and more opportunities for smaller parties to have more of a chance of gaining seats and gaining power, getting more media exposure. And of course the media is playing a huge part in this process of trying to twist the narrative of these parties. You know, portray these smaller parties and new parties in such a bad light that, you know, they're finished before they even started. But anyway, political stuff aside, I'm proud of England in the sense of that our identity is quite formed in some ways, yet in other ways we're very much, and I think that's because we're surrounded by the ocean. We're very, well, in a way, we're quite inward-looking people. We're quite, I'd say more, our nationality in some ways is quite introverted, but in other ways it's very outgoing and it's outward-looking, because we're sort of very much a nation of not everybody, obviously. You know, there's a lot of people that don't like to travel and whatever, but I think a lot of people in England are they are people that. There's an element of adventure in them. There's an element of breaking out of these islands, you know. And I think that's because of the way that, you know, our values in some ways, and our sort of what's our social norms and what's acceptable and not in what we can do and say out in our daily normal lives. But I think that's one of the reasons that we party so much and we drink so much. Of course, I'm stereotyping here to some degree, generalising, but I really believe that. I think that's one of the reasons we do it, is because we feel very much restrained, really, in our... I think it's quite a restraint, like I said, it's very much like the ties in some ways. But I think in generally speaking, even regardless of our class or whatever, wherever we come from in Britain, I think we are quite a conservative nation of people. There's a difference between that and conservative, as in the political party, conservative values in that regard. But I think our sort of default setting is to be quite restrained, quite reserved. Sort of, you know, biting our lip kind of thing, stiff upper lip, all that sort of thing. But in some ways, I'm kind of proud of that, because I like that. I think we are quite a smart nation. We are quite a smart, huge group of people, really. I think overall we are we're very well, and I'm proud of what we are. We are tolerant, even though perhaps we tolerate too much, and we tolerate. I think it's important to be tolerant to a certain degree, but I think that has to stop when tolerance equals the, you know, erosion of our own culture, erosion of our own society, really, our economy, ourselves, our pride, our sense of self, our self-esteem in some ways. It's all going well to be multicultural, but I don't know how, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that, really. In some ways it's a great thing because you've got the influences of different cultures and different types of food, different types of art, different festivals and things like that. In some ways that's one of the things that's great about Britain now, is that there's so many different things there. But in other ways we used to be more proud of ourselves, our own culture, our own habits and ways of doing things, and our own forms of entertainment. And now it's like all that just seems to have just been completely eroded, more or less. Or it doesn't really. It's now England's really just a multicultural. Our identity now is seen as more or less as people that, tolerant of different cultures, and that is true to a certain degree. But I think that if you actually sat down and spoke to some British people, English people, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, English, I think you would find that that's not quite completely true. English people, British people are, well, certainly English people. I'm generalising here, obviously, I know. And there's always exceptions, there's many of them. But I think if you actually sat down with an English person and talked to them about these things seriously, they'd give you some very interesting answers. And I think people rub up English people the wrong way. I think that but that happens with a lot of people. We've all got our own. We all judge people based on the sort of stereotypes that exist of Americans, English, Scots, Spanish, whatever. What the types of things that we wear, the types of things we eat, the types of things that we do, and some of those stereotypes, some of the things are true actually, it probably in general, but of course. People just don't like to hear the truth sometimes. But there's more to it. There's sometimes in some ways the stereotypes are true, but there's a lot more going on there. There's a lot more to English people than meets the eye, and we are quite an intelligent bunch of people, really, and you only have to see. I mean, of course, you can't take pride for all the inventions that you had nothing to do with, or the influence. But I think because of the education. Even in the average school, it's some of the education that we get in England is it's not the best, obviously, but it's certainly not the worst. And even in some of the sort of crap schools, the poorer schools, even though you can't really use that word in England these days, but it's still good compared to a lot of the other parts of the world, really, even in parts of Europe. So. We're talking about a country that has some of the best universities in the world. Well, maybe not so much the comprehensive schools or the state schools, whatever, but high schools, secondary schools. But some of the primary schools in England are some of the best. Some of the really great primary schools, incredible grammar schools that still exist. There really should be more of them, in my opinion. We should try to get. I think there should be more emphasis on getting those back. Some great colleges and obviously some of the best universities in the world, like Oxford and Cambridge. Well, the Oxford universities, Cambridge universities or colleges, and obviously in London as well, you've got some great universities and colleges, schools there. So I'm proud of our achievements as a country. I'm proud of the things that we've tried to, we try to be civilized, we try to be tolerant, we try to be understanding, we try to be fair. Generally speaking, we try to be fair. We try to do things in the right way. We try to be kind. We try to be pleasant. We try to have compassion. we are really, we are a nation of animal lovers. We're a nation of people that care actually about a lot of the world, even though we feel a lot of the time that we can't really do much about it. And so many people in England give so much to charity. You're talking about a country that I don't think we should feel guilty, and one of the reasons I say that is because we're bombarded, always bombarded with, in the high street, on the TV, on the internet, well, certainly in British television, English TV channels, of advertisements, or in places like Africa or India or the Middle East or wherever, about animal cruelty, about starvation, malaria, all sorts of things that are happening in the world. But mostly, I think it seems to be mostly in Africa, and a lot of people give money to those charities. I think we've paid our dues in a lot of ways, even though we didn't necessarily need to. And certainly this generation's done a lot, and I think that the last generation did a lot as well in many ways. I think in a lot of ways we should be very proud, or I'm very proud of of what the previous generations have given, especially in regards to rights for women, workers' rights, health and safety, a minimum wage, a health service, a free partially free health service, in some ways completely free. Just incredible things that a lot of the world doesn't have, and may probably never have, and perhaps in some ways we shouldn't have, or it should have been privatized perhaps decade before. So I think what I'm saying is I'm proud of what we used to be. I'm still proud of my country. I'm still proud of many things that makes England. But there's a lot of things that make me question our where we are now, and where we're heading, and what do we represent anymore? What do we stand for? We need to get our self-respect back. We need to really form ourselves as an identity again before we completely lose ourselves. And I think one of the things that I'm a little bit pessimistic about is immigration and the effects of that. I don't blame the immigrants themselves necessarily, or there are some questionable people trying to enter the country. A lot of people are just trying to start better lives, and I am compassionate towards that, and I feel sorry for those people. Some of those people and families just looking for a better life. But I personally think we're heading to a time where we're going to have to say no more. We need to stop. We need to start to get a handle on what's happening here, what's going on. Where do we want? What do we want our country to look like? What do we want our people to say that they belong to in 20, 30 years from now, 50, 100 years from now? Will we have a country? Will we still have any native people? I think it's important that we recognize who we are and where we've come from, and what our country is factually, what it is, what it's supposed to be in some ways. We need to understand and respect and take forward the good parts of our heritage, of our history. I'm not saying that there isn't room for change. There is. There's always room for change. There's always room for things to get better, to improve. Nothing's ever going to be completely perfect, and I would not want to live in a utopian world, because it would be the complete opposite of that. But I feel that we're going to lose ourselves completely in the next couple of decades. And that's not through immigrants necessarily themselves pushing any kind of agenda or anything. It's just because it's just going to be, we're going to be overwhelmed by so much influence from different countries. You could say, well, you're xenophobic, you're this, you're that. No, I'm not. I'm in Thailand. I'm in a completely different part of the world, where predominantly people in this country are Thai. I don't have a problem with people from other countries in general, but I do have a problem with that, the effects of immigration, too much of it, too much multiculturalism, impacting to such an extent that the very foundation, the core of somewhere or something is completely dissolved. And then those people just disappear out the country because they don't feel like they have a voice, they have anything to, they don't belong there anymore. That's a very sad situation, and that's why I like Thailand. I respect Thailand and the Thai government in some ways, because they don't want too many foreigners here. They don't want too many tourists, too many people from different countries, because they want to keep their own identity. They want to keep their culture, and that's the right way of approaching things, in my opinion. And you could turn around and say, well, that's not going to happen, but it's already happening. It's already happened. You can see how the influence of so-called social justice is creeping into virtually every aspect of life in England. You know, you only have to look at the impact of Islam and where that's heading towards in the next couple of decades. The political arena, the situation there is just unbelievable. God knows what's going to happen with regards to Brexit, and God knows how much of a shambles that will turn out to be. I mean, we only have to look, what is it, 3 years on now, and we're absolutely nowhere. We've gotten nowhere. Because yes, but some legislation's been brought. It doesn't mean a fucking thing. It means nothing. We should have left, regardless. We should have. That's what I want to say before I go. British people used to have a pair of balls. We used to have assertiveness. We used to make decisions. We used to be strong-willed people, and we're just fucking weak. We're just cowards now. We're just a shadow, really. We need to get back what we used to have. Stop fanning around. Start playing on the world stage again, and start acting like an actual a nation of people that are proud of themselves, are proud of their identities, and are proud of their countries. Countries. Because if we don't, we will bring about the consequences that are coming, or may come anyway, for our own doing rather than anybody else's. And some of it is for our own doing anyway. So we need to change, and we need to change very swiftly. Like I say, England's got an incredible history, incredible past in so many different ways, and I'm proud of so much stuff that we've achieved as an actual nation, but also just I'm proud of the people that have given so much to the country and pushed it forward, like really progressed the country. This whole progressive idea of what's progressive now is just a complete, it's just smoke and mirrors. It's nothing progressive about it whatsoever. So I'll leave it there. In general, I'm still very much proud of being who I am, and coming from where I come from, even though in some ways I dislike where I come from in certain aspects. But I'd say a good 80%, 70 to 80%, I'm still very much at a place where I still have hope. I still have hope for my country, because there's so many proud, really genuinely kind and nice patriotic people that do have the best interests of our country at heart. Unlike a lot of people that come to the country who don't respect the country, who don't respect the culture, who have no interest in learning any of the customs or anything that makes us who we are and who we want to be. And also that applies to a lot of British people as well, who are pushing this more European kind of or American style sort of personality identity thing that's going on now. I get we're living in a completely different time, but we need to bring back some of what we used to have before it's too late. Thank you very much for checking in with me today. Let's check out, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.